Welcome to Central Florida Salute YouTube. Today it's a second show of with another Air Force person, Tess McCormack, who is over 60.
Over 60, correct.
And she served in the United States Air Force. She is the mother-in-law of the young lady we just had here last week. What was her
Crystal.
name? Crystal.
Crystal.
Crystal. See how, Crystal Martin. She had quite the story.
She has quite a story. She's quite a gal.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. And I understand her daughter now, your granddaughter, is in the service now too.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but we're going to talk a little bit about you. So, where were you born?
I came from a little village in New York called Rockland County. And I was born in the village of Piermont. Piermont is probably one of the smallest villages around, like 3,000 people, filled with mostly immigrants, Irish.
The whole world
Italian.
is full of immigrants in here.
That's true.
You know, everybody says in the United States, immigrants. You know, the only ones who aren't immigrants were the Indians.
That's true.
We all immigrants. But yeah, I understand they're first generation coming over, right?
Well, I was first generation. My parents were actually both of them born in Italy. And they met in New York City. And then they moved to this little village of Piermont because it's on the Hudson. And my father said it reminded him of Naples.
Oh, okay.
And he left Italy on one of the ships from Naples because he didn't want to fight for Mussolini.
Yeah.
And so
that's a good move.
Yeah, came here to America, met my mother, and got married. Very good Catholics, and religion played a big role in our family. My mother had 6 kids in like 10 years, and I was at the bottom of the list. My father made it very clear, very early, that there were 3 boys in the family. 3 boys go to college. 3 girls get married and have babies. And
yeah,
so,
the old school.
Yeah, of course, the old school. And so it never occurred to me in high school that I should even dream of college. I took home economics. I lived in the gym. I became the captain of the cheerleaders. Everything I did drama classes, but nothing to prepare me for college because it wasn't where I was going to go.
You know, that is the old school thinking, you know, and I have 3 daughters, and I tell them all the time, well, they're all grown now, but you could be anything you want to be, you know what I mean? But look at the women veterans nowadays. They're like 19% of the military. Yeah. They fly jets. They do whatever, you know. So that kind of thinking, because back then that's the way it was, but
well, in our family, especially because of the Catholic religion, you know, we had to make sure that if you didn't go to church, it was a sin. If you did something bad, God was going to punish you. And so we lived within the family rules, but always with, you know what I mean, always looking up to making sure we were doing the right thing. You had to go to confession for every little thing you did. Even if you went to confession last week and you said a dirty word, you had to tell the priest. It was a really strict religious family. So when I decided to join the military, my mother was heartbroken. Mostly my mother was heartbroken.
What made you decide to join the military?
Well, what happened is because my father got cancer early, my mother had to go to work. And we had a factory right in our backyard. The only thing separating our home and the factory was parking lot. So my mother walked to the factory because my father was sick. So because I had no one at home, my older brothers and sisters were already in school. My mother went to work. The principal, who knew of my family, because he was also Italian, let me go into the kindergarten class at 4, sort of like babysit for me, because they didn't know what else to do with me. But then they forgot about me, and I graduated when I was 16.
Wow.
So now what do you do at 16 when you already know that you're not going to college? So the first job I got fired. I got fired because it was in a bakery shop, and she told me if I ate more than 2 donuts, I would get fired.
Well, I wouldn't have lasted a day. My mother used to make donuts, you know, and here's the kitchen, here's the living room, the bathroom's down there. I gotta go to the bathroom. I walk by, I come back. Man, these donuts aren't adding up.
Well, that's one of my weaknesses too. Anyway, so because I didn't realize I had eaten a donut that made some of the sugar.
Oh, yeah, you got caught.
She fired me, right? Anyway, so I really had no place else to go except to work in the factory as a file clerk. Now, my parents were proud of that because they worked in the factory. Their daughter is now in the office.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened is one day, my boss, who was really a spinster lady, but very nice, she asked me to take some documents from our office to another office. And I had to walk through the factory. And I see my father, who was still working then, on a machine, and I waved to him. I thought he'd be happy to see me, but when I got home that evening, he asked to speak to me privately, and I thought, what did I do? He said, do you have to walk through the factory every day? I said, Pop, I don't know, but if I have to deliver, of course I will have to. He said, well, if you have to do that, he said, look at me, do this. My father stood up from his chair, and he took his shoulders and pitched them forward. And in Italian, he said, cammina così, walk like this. And I said, but why? He said, because when you walk like this, and everybody looks at you. Now, you're smiling, but I didn't smile.
I'm sure you didn't, yeah.
I was upset with that my father was telling me at 16 to cover myself up. And so when I went back into the office, I was telling my boss, who was really very nice, I said, I just can't believe where my life is going. My father's already telling me to walk like an old lady. And so she said, what would you like to do? And I always like to dream, and I thought, well, someday I'd like to fly. She said, you know, you're kind of cute and little. She said, how about if I take you to Pan Am? You could become a Pan Am girl. Never did I dream of that. But she took me to New York City, and it was the first time that I was ever in the city. I was amazed at the city, and I got to go to the Pan Am, and when I got in there, of course, you know, they started to interview me, and they said, by the way, how old are you? I said, 16, very proud. She says, come back when you're 21.
Oh, boy.
So that was the end of that. Yeah. So as we're leaving, this woman that interviewed me from Pan Am said, well, if you really want to fly, why don't you join the Air Force? Dummy me. I said, girls can join a man's army? She said, this is the Air Force now. It's the new Air Force. My boss thought it was a great idea, so from New York, she took me to Nyack. I go in there and I say, I want to sign up for the Air Force. He said, how old are you? I said, 16. He said, come back when you're 18.
Yeah.
So I worked in the factory until I was 18. And then I joined the military.
Yeah, you know, there's an organization. Actually, it was in the Villages at one time. Guy's first name was Alec. I can't remember his last name. I did a show with him. It was called The Underage Military Veterans, about how people would sneak into the service at 16 and 17 years old. Yeah. And he told me about one young girl who got called off the parade field because Eisenhower was there. Eisenhower saw her and said, how old are you, little girl? She said, 12. He says, go home and come back when you're older. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the guys and gals, you know, you're supposed to get your parents' consent at 17. Well, one guy, he went in, he says, if you don't sign for me, I'm going to join a gang. So, but yeah, I can understand your frustration now. You know, you want to do something, but you can't. But you eventually did, right?
Eventually I did. I went into the military. However, my mother suffered a lot. She prayed to God that, she would take this wayward daughter of hers and protect her because nice girls don't join the military. So my mother would not walk with me when I came home with my uniform on. It's like telling everybody, this is my daughter, she's a streetwalker, you know. So
oh my goodness.
It was really very upsetting for my mother.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was sent to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas.
Oh yeah, everybody goes there.
Everybody goes there. And so, of course, for me, everything I did was new. I got to ride on a train from New York to Texas. And when you get there, they usually ask you, what would you like to do? And I thinking, I'm not qualified to do anything, except I knew I had a good, strong body because I was a captain of the cheerleaders in high school.
Yeah.
So I said, I want to be a drill sergeant because I know I could be a good drill sergeant. So she kind of laughed and put down whatever. And anyway, we obviously took aptitude tests, and out of 60 girls in my squadron, I was the only one that they sent to work in the Pentagon. Now, it scared me to death because I didn't even know where the Pentagon was.
Yeah.
But anyway, they put me on a military plane called MATS, Military Air Transport, and it was really kind of funny because they told me before that they were going to fly me from Texas to Arlington, and that when I got on the plane, there were going to be boys from Vietnam who were wounded, and there was going to be a nurse.
Now, what year is this?
This is 1950.
1950. Maybe they were Korea or something.
I mean, yeah, not Vietnam. It was Korea.
I was going to say, yeah, because Korea ended around 53.
No,
and
this was Korea.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I get on the plane, and these young boys, and they're hooting and hollering, oh, look at this little cutie babe coming. The nurse yells at them, and she sits me down, and she says, you know, if I need your help, you know, because they were all wounded. And so what did I do? I fell asleep, put my head on this guy's shoulder, you know, from flying from Texas to New York, and all of a sudden I feel, and he says, excuse me, ma'am, would you mind changing seats with me? Oh, I'm so sorry. He said, this is my good shoulder. Now you can lean on it.
Oh, what a nice story.
So I always remember that because then I was wide awake. Then he tells me he's from New Jersey and he's going to get married, and he invited me to his wedding and all that. So anyway, I get to Arlington and they pick me up in a Jeep. So my first experience was flying in a plane.
Your first flight,
time.
right?
First flight.
Yeah.
And then I get a Jeep, and they take me to the Pentagon. Now, I did get, after my basic training, a stripe. Mm-hmm. They say if you get a stripe, that means you're not too stupid. You know, you get.
I don't know. They gave me one.
So I was proud to walk into the building. I mean, if you ever been to the Pentagon,
I have seen it, not had the pleasure.
Huge. And I had my papers, and I was in my uniform, my stripes showing, and so I thought I could find the communication center, but I guess I was too scared or too green.
Well, it's quite a huge place, too.
Could not find it. After walking about an hour, I was exhausted, and I now knew I was going to get a gig late for my first job. So I said, well, what does any other 18-year-old little girl do? I sat down on a bench and I started to cry. And I'm feeling sorry for myself, looking down, saying, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I see these shiny, shiny shoes walking up to me, and I look up, and there's a man standing with a star on his shoulders.
A general.
A general. I jumped up to salute as he is bending over to say, may I help you? And I knocked his hat off. Then I really cried. He picks up his hat. He said, may I see your papers? And I showed him the papers. He said, I just happen to be going your way. I'll be happy to escort you. Well, now I'm standing straight, drying my tears, you know, but I don't look at him. He's a general, right? I'm a PFC. We go into the store, which I almost found the right place because I was not too far away. And we walk in, and there's a blonde sergeant sitting at the desk, and she sees us walking in together, and she says, General, they've been waiting for you. He ignores her remark, and he says, he hands her my papers. This is PFC Mercurio. We have been detained. So I thought, wow, he made an excuse for me. That was really pretty nice.
Yeah, really.
And she goes, General, they've been waiting for you. So he quickly turns, wishes me luck, and he walks to a door that was just a few feet away. But he knew I had no idea who he was. She says to me, boy, how did you rate? Do you know who he is? I said, yeah, I know he's a general. She said, that's not a general, that's General Eisenhower.
No kidding, really?
I did just that. I turned to look at him, and he knew she was going to tell me that, right? And he gives me a wink. So I like to tell the story. My first job, Eisenhower escorted me with a wink.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
that's the only interesting story I think that I have, because I like to say, how many other people were escorted to their first job? Well, not first job, because first job was in the mill, but in the Pentagon. And so I worked there for 2 years. And then my mother, now I'm coming home a little more on weekends because Washington and New York are close.
Okay.
And my mother would just refuse to walk with me because she was ashamed of me. My uniform was telling the people what her daughter was. So I decided I would try to tell my mother what I did. So I start out by saying, Mom, you know you're in America now. America has a president. My mother only had, by the way, a 4th grade education.
Oh, okay.
Spoke hardly any English. But I'm telling her this. I said, so in America, we have a president, and the president makes rules. I said, in this building that I work in, we have to make sure that everybody in America knows all the rules. And I typed them, and she goes, you secretary? I thought that was good enough. I said, yeah, I'm secretary. Well, that made a difference to her, because the next time I came home, she had 12 Italian ladies all sitting there waiting to see me, and she said, here comes my daughter. She works for the President of America, and she is a secretary to the President of America. Now she was so happy because I'm a secretary. After that, it was okay. She could walk with me in the street, but not until I proved to her that I was worthy. It was a very sad time, really.
Well, times have changed quite a bit, haven't they?
And I said, and I used to say to her, but Mom, I already went to confession. I already told God I'm sorry, but I had to do this. So I was hoping that would say, it was okay. But only when I convinced her that what I was doing was not something bad.
Well, my dear, I got to tell you something. Your first impression with the general, you knocked his hat off. My first impression was with the general. He pulled up alongside of me in a car and said, get your hands out of your pockets. Yours is a much better story.
But anyway, I do think that's an interesting story.
Yeah. So what did you do? How long were you in the Pentagon?
I stayed there for 2 years, celebrated my 19th birthday there, which was kind of nice. And then my mother won. I came home and married my high school sweetheart. So in the end, I made her happy. And so by the time I got a discharge, I was in almost 3 years. And then I was sent to Randolph Field, where my now husband was stationed in the Air Force. And that was not a good experience for me because we got married, we had a weekend together, and then I had to get back, and he had to get back, so we had 2 days together, and then I didn't see him for 9 months after that.
What year was this now?
And this is 1952.
Okay, yeah, Korea is still going on because they got over in 53.
Yeah. And that was another reason why my mother prevailed, because I wanted to stay in, and my mother said God was going to punish me because if he got killed, during the war, it would be my fault because I was so selfish that I wanted to stay and work in the Pentagon, and he's fighting for our country. So I ended up getting out of the military in my
Well,
third year.
I'm quite honest with you, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I look at it the other way around. You're there for your country and your husband. You know.
Yeah, but you see, I would have been in Washington, and he was in Texas. I'm supposed to be with my husband, so I can.
Well, if he got sent to Korea, you couldn't go to Korea anyway.
No, that's true. But anyway, the other sad story, I like to write, so I've written 3 books, and one of them is a memoir, and the title is catchy. It's From the Outhouse to the Penthouse. Because when I got to Texas, and my husband picks me up in this little jalopy car, but we were so happy, you know.
Yeah, right.
Newlyweds. I was all of 19, 20 years old. And as we're driving, I see a sign that says trailer park. And I thought, but I'm a newlywed, but what do I care, right? And the next thing you know, we pull in to the trailer park, and I say, we're going to live here? He said, yeah, but you'll love it. It's small, it's cozy, it's really great. Okay, I'm a newlywed and hadn't seen him since I got married, so walk into the little trailer. It's so small you could touch the sink and the refrigerator at the same time. And then you go, there's a pocket door, and we slide open the pocket door, and there's a nice bed. Oh, nice size bed. So here we are, 2 kids. We hopped on the bed. Wow.
That's enough of that.
We
are a family show, you know.
Great time, right? Until it was over. And then I say, by the way, where's the John? He says, not too far. What do you mean, not too far? It was an outhouse.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, newlyweds, our first fight. And I remember saying, I might have grown up poor, but at least we had a damn bathroom. So the next day I went to the PX, got myself a job, and within 2 months we were out of there. Not that it was that much bigger place, but it was a place with 2 rooms, a kitchen, a TV room, and a bathroom. And that was the beginning of our life. The sad part is that we didn't make it as a marriage either.
Well, those things happen.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's my story. It's not very interesting because I never.
Let me ask you though. You know, okay, so after the military thing was over, what did you do?
Well,
you just stay home wife kind of thing, or did you go a career?
I stayed home for maybe 10 years. I had 2 sons, and I tried to make the marriage work, and it didn't. Again, my mother I had to go to church because you don't get a divorce in a Catholic faith. And to make matters worse, my first husband's sister was a nun. So I had all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so what I did was, because I was a good typist, I applied for a job in a law firm. And within 8 years, I married the boss. So that was a good thing. And my life really started when I married Gil. He was a trial attorney, and I worked as his office manager. And I had to change my name. You probably can't see this, but this says Mrs. Parker on here, because working as Mrs. McCormack, the wife of the head of the law firm, it was impossible, because if I did something that wasn't quite right, it was a reflection on the boss. So I became Mrs. Parker because this one day I was looking to buy some equipment, and some salesman comes in, and I'm telling him different things, and I said, I really don't think my husband would like this. And he goes, honey, you take him to bed. He'll buy you whatever you want. Now, that angered me so much, I chased him out of the office.
You got your daughter-in-law over there, and the world is watching. I think we need to wrap this up, Trish, you know?
Okay. In any event, that's when I had to change I decided the next secretary that tells anyone that my name is McCormack, I said, you're fired. And they said, well, what do you want us to call you? And my husband and I had just bought a house from the Parkers. And I said, I'm living in the Parker house. Call me Mrs. Parker. Now, the good part about that is that when I needed a legal secretary, this beautiful woman comes in. She's had experience, and I say to her, I see you work for a very reputable law firm. Would you mind telling me why you're leaving? She said, yeah, his wife works for him, so what can I tell you? So I said, it was a good thing. See if I... So it was not easy for women to get into positions of authority.
Oh, yeah, but things have changed a lot now. I mean, like I was telling your daughter-in-law, like 19% of the military is women. They're fighter pilots or this or that. And I tell my daughters, you can be anything you want to be. Mm-hmm. And so. So
what I know you say we have to wrap this up, but I just want to say that while I was working in the office when my husband got sick, he obviously retired and I did too. And I decided then that I was going to do what I couldn't do when I was a teenager. I wanted to go to college. And so I was talking to a friend of mine who owned a radio station, and I said, I'm finally going to get a college education. And she said, why? Do you want to take calculus at your age? I said, no, not really. And she said, well, listen, we have a new TV station in our area. I think you would be great on it. She sends me over to the radio station, and that was the beginning of 9 years of my TV career.
Your radio career?
TV.
TV? Oh, you did TV?
I did radio later for hospice. I did
This
show,
is where?
In Rockland County, New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the TV station was TKR Radio, TKR Television.
I do. Been on a local TV station down here for about 10 years. Now I'm doing YouTube for 4 years, but I also do radio too. Mm-hmm. I do 1410 The Q radio every Friday from 12 to 1. I expect you to listen. Maybe I'll bring you in as a guest, but you got to keep it clean.
But I didn't say anything.
I know you didn't. I'm just teasing you. But we do have to wrap this up. I thank you for your what you did for your country. And you know what? I mean, it shows a lot of you as a person saying, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this, and I'm proud you did. We need more people to step up and
follow their dreams.
Follow their dreams. Mm-hmm. And 3 books you wrote, right?
I did. From
the outhouse to the penthouse. And then from the penthouse to what?
The memoir is The Outhouse to the Penthouse. The second one is one of Gil's trials. He represented a 16-year-old girl who was married to, whose father-in-law was a Nazi SS officer. Whoa. And he represented the girl because the girl was so tormented that she actually tried to kill him, and he got her off. And then the third one is really what I'm working on right now. Maybe I'll come back on your show if I win this contest. The third book that I wrote is The Return of the Flag, The Epic Journey of a Flag. My husband was a Marine.
Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Darn right.
There's a lot of them on there's a lot of my YouTube shows that you have to watch now, because I gave your daughter-in-law a homework assignment to watch some of Central Florida Salute, and I'm giving you the same assignment. You'll see a lot of Marines on there.
So I'll ask you a favor then.
Uh-oh.
If my book, if I win this contest, which I will know by the first week of November, then would you have me back on the show so I could talk about that book?
Absolutely, my dear. Absolutely.
I thank you very much for having me.
Well, I thank you for being here. It was a great interview, a lot of fun, but time to say goodbye.
Time to say goodbye.
And you saw how we do this, right?
You don't say goodbye. You say so long. Never say goodbye.
You ready? Okay, here we go. To all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time.